Stephen Meade again, back with another Bullseye Guy podcast. I keep saying they come fast and furious. It's hard to keep up, but super excited as always. Pat Burns. Pat and I have tried to connect probably for the last 3 months. Referred to me by Mark Victor Hansen. Many of you know him. Mark's an amazing chicken soup for the soul. Anytime Mark says you must interview this person, it's immediate. And Pat comes to us through Mark. Always super grateful for that. Pat, I've read about you. We've spoken briefly. Yes, big love for Mark. Let's start with Pat, tell us about yourself. Give us an introduction.
Oh, Stephen, thanks so much. And really, isn't it great that we have such a wonderful mutual friend?
Yeah, amazing.
My history goes back, I came out of the womb with a go, go, go mentality. My mom dubbed me when I was 3 years old as the yes, my am girl. Because she used to say, you're not going to do that. And I go, yes, my am. So that's kind of been my whole life. I've just sort of always been, not sort of, I have been, just the person that just goes for it. I always, from elementary to high school to college to graduate to work to my careers. And that's kind of what people go to me for, because I am the person that can make it happen.
Yeah.
So, I could go into more, but let's just start chatting.
Yeah, well, so when you and I spoke, there's, so much interesting in your background, and we could try and go forward or backwards. Let's talk about some of the stuff you're doing now around the books and the reading, because that'll give us context to go back to how you got started.
Absolutely. Sure. So I'm the co-founder of the largest children's book festival in North America. It's called the Orange County Children's Book Festival, and the website is kids, bookfestival.com. We're a 501c3, and we draw about 18,000 people to a one-day event on a campus here in Costa Mesa, California, called Orange Coast College. And through that, I'm just thinking of more names to add to my list. Through that, I've interviewed and sat with and spent time with icons such as Kobe Bryant. He was he and I worked together in 2019, and he was on our main stage, and we had 24,000 people that day. And they were in the parking lot at 2:00 in the morning waiting to walk on campus. It was his last large public appearance before his unfortunate and sad, tragic accident that took him and his daughter and many other wonderful family members from Orange County. But before that, I've worked with Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Jamie Lee Curtis, Molly Shannon, and the list just goes on and on. Buzz Aldrin. All of these people have written children's books. Also, Sean Wayans, he was a hoot to work with. He came 2 years in a row. Loved our organization. The whole mission of why I love doing this work, Stephen, and for your listeners, is that I started out in life as the oldest daughter of 5 kids. And as a child, my mom got MS, and it was one of the earliest diagnoses. And they didn't know, how to treat it or anything else. So I ended up raising all the kids, and no one was ever reading to me, or schoolwork was nothing that I took any joy in, because I was always making sandwiches or washing hairs at 10 years old, I became the mom of 5 kids. So it's a lot of work to do.
Yeah.
And because of that, I struggle with reading as an adult. And I realized that if you don't get that bug as a child, if someone doesn't excite you, if they don't say, paint that mystery in your mind of what that book can do for you, it's very, very difficult to get it as an adult. Now, it's not impossible, because I know a lot of other people that have had the same struggle, and they've turned out to be great readers. So this is something that we put on now for 18 years, and then COVID hit us. So with COVID, we had to reinvent everything. And we just thought, okay, well, let's do a virtual book festival. And we decided very early on. I'm very fortunate in the fact that my daughter, one of my daughters, is a nurse midwife, and she's married to an ER doctor. I happened to be visiting them in Nashville, where they were living at the time when COVID hit. And they said, hey, Mom, you ain't going anywhere. You're going to stay right here with us. So I ended up staying there for 4 months.
Wow.
And told my board at that point, we aren't going to be able to have a live event. So we went right into, and I said, nope, that's it. I already have the inside scoop. I said, this is going to be 2 years. And I told him, and we'll probably lose about 5 million people, because this is information I was getting strictly from the horse's mouth, right? And so they backed me on it, and we did a virtual book then, and it was wonderful. Kristen Bell was our headliner that year, and Jason Reynolds, who is just a phenomenon in the
Yeah.
children's book world, worked with him as well. And yeah, so then this year we decided to do, instead of a virtual book festival, which really was not that much fun for the kids, because they've been doing Zoom meetings. And that was one of the decisions I made, is to not do a virtual book festival on Zoom, but do it on YouTube.
Okay.
Because on YouTube, kids are still going to watch cats falling and slipping and people banging into doors, and all that stuff. So they very much love YouTube, but they hate Zoom. So I learned that real quickly.
Yeah, sure.
And so this year we decided to do a spaced theme reading challenge based on science, technology, engineering, arts, and math, which is STEAM. And we got the backing of the Orange County Department of Education. We have 1,600 kids participating. Over 500 have won prizes, and it's a nightmare to put it together.
Yeah, wow.
It's a labor of love, but it's wrapping up. We close it out on Friday, and then we start packaging 500 awards and prizes for the kids. And hopefully by Christmas, I'm going to be able to collapse and take a breath.
So that's a long time. Let's go backwards now. What got you excited about that? What got you started? What was the epiphany or motivation on it?
Well, it's really interesting. There's two things that happened. First was that somebody came to me with it. So what happened was, I was running Mark Victor Hansen and Robert G. Allen's Millionaire Summit. They made me president of the company. I had to run it. I had to market it. I had to find the millionaires. I had to sell it. I had to create the tickets. I had to do everything. And we did. And it was $10,000 a ticket. And I sold 12 millionaires. And they came to a meeting, and we put on this phenomenal 2.5-day event. And the person I hired to record it was a gentleman by the name of Barry. And he came to me after it was all over, knocked at my door and said, I have an idea I want to present to you. And I said, I'm so exhausted. Can you just give me a little time to rest? And he said, well, I want to create a book festival for Orange County. And I said, why bother? LA already has a really big one. It's 45 minutes away. And he goes, no, this is for children and families. And I went, oh, that intrigued me. So I said, okay, come back and see me in 6 months. I said, I've got another Millionaire Summit to put on. I don't have the time to really devote to this, but in 6 months I will. And God love him, 6 months to the date, he is at my door, knocking away. And we sat down, and 5 hours on my patio, and lo and behold, boom, we had it done. We created the book festival, and we took off from there. But part of the reason was not just because he wanted me there. It goes back to my understanding that children need to love books. The second aspect of this, was a lot of people don't realize, so you're getting an inside scoop, Stephen, is that I'd written a book for grandparents called Grandparents Rock. And I took it to #1 on Amazon. Mark Victor Hansen wrote the foreword, and I learned all the steps of what it takes to be a #1 bestseller from him and from Jack Canfield as well. And I incorporated all their lessons that I'd been running with for 7 years. And because of that, I wanted to promote my own book at the book festival, because all these families go, and I thought it'd be a great gift book. And from that, stepping backwards, Stephen, with the Grandparents Rock book, I became aligned with a Grandparents magazine. They found me, we met each other, we fell in love with each other. It was a match made in heaven. And I've been a regional editor for them now ever since. And that's where I get to interview people like George Foreman, Pat Boone, John Paul DeJoria, famous Dave Anderson of Famous Dave's Barbecue, Jack Canfield, Don Miguel Ruiz with the Four Agreements. And it just goes on and on and on, the people that I've been able to spend time with because of it. So I get excited about the fact that find things that you love, Stephen, and parlay them into something bigger.
Sure.
And with that, you really do get to have a lot more fun in life. And that's part of the whole thing. When I was a motivational speaker for 8 years, did over 500 talks, audiences as small as 30 and big as 3,000, in every capital in North America, including all across Canada. And one of the things that I always used to put is my rules of life. And I had 5 rules of life. And one is, have fun. Because, if you're not
Yeah,
having
that's a good
fun,
one.
life is just too long, you know. And yeah, and so I just went through this, and then I would give my talk and have a lot of fun with the audience. And it really, everything, just like I said, that was because when I was a little kid and through college, I always wanted to be an actress because I wanted to play all roles of life. I thought, how could I be a nun, a hooker, an entrepreneur, president of the United States? How could I be everything? And I said I could be an actress and just pretend I am, right? And so being a motivational speaker was sort of my parlay from that childhood dream into my adult life. And that's where I met so many other people. That's where I met Bill Clinton, because we were on the stage at the same time. And, it just goes on and on and on, the opportunities that you have if you're doing what you love.
Yeah, and it's amazing because you and I spoke a little bit. When I was 22, this is in my story, I read 357 books in 6.5 years.
Wow.
And people are like, oh, that's a lot. It's not. It was 1 book per week. And the goal was to read a book from the masters, dissect the element, and stack skill sets. And so many of the people you mentioned are, these are people I grew up reading and meeting and developing. And there's so much you can learn from. Again, I have sayings just like you. One of mine is, experience is the best teacher. It's also the slowest.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good one, Stephen. Really good.
So many of the masters out there that you can just accelerate your experiences through them. So when you started doing that, how did you transition then from the motivational speaker? Because the Mark Victors and the Jack Canfields and the Don Miguel Ruizes, and I went through John Paul out there. He's not a motivational speaker. John Paul DeJoy's got a great story. How did you transition then from those kind of self-improvement and grandmothers, which you wrote the book for, into the children's side? Was there an inflection point or an opening that you said, wow, this is the direction I want to go?
Well, I'd have to think about that because, well, one of the things that I pride myself on is knowing when it's time to stop. And there comes a time in everything you do, you have to decide, is this still serving me? Am I making an impact? Am I helping people? Is there good being done? And when I was a keynote speaker, I really, really, really saw, and my market was mostly real estate agents because I was a top producer as a real estate agent, and a manager as a top recruiter. So I realized that there were so many dramatic changes in the real estate industry with technology playing a huge role that I wasn't relevant. And as soon as I felt that I wasn't relevant, I thought, no, you're not a bullshit artist. You're not going to get up there and pretend like you know what they're going through, because I didn't. And so right at that point, I had an opportunity to be a consultant for a Vietnamese gentleman who was starting a company in Vietnam. And he hired me to do a workshop for his managers that were all Vietnamese, but they spoke English. And I gave a workshop for 40 of these Vietnamese men, and at the end, they just sat there. Nobody said a word. They didn't smile. I mean, I got humor in my talks, and I'm animated, and I'm going on and on. And I thought, oh, man, I've never bombed so bad in my life, ever. And so what happened at that point is I was like, okay, he made an offer for me to come and work for him in Vietnam. So I took it because I was transitioning out. I had about 4 more big talks for the year. And I thought, okay, I'm going to go ahead and take this opportunity. And I moved to Vietnam for a year and 4 months and learned the culture and figured out how to speak it and get around. And I was the only Caucasian woman living in this villa, and I think Vietnam villa, don't think French Riviera villa, okay? There were 14 men and me. So I caused chaos everywhere I went, you know. Um, and so it was a perfect time to stop doing that and transition to this. Well, when I came back from Vietnam, that's when Mark and Bob hired me to help them launch their companies. And I did that. And then at that point, there was some shifting in their relationships. And I could see the writing on the wall. Here it comes
Yeah.
again. Time to transition. And then the offer came to run the book festival. So, you know, everything just sort of starts to unfold as long as you're paying attention and you realize, okay, this is the universe telling me something. Am I going to listen or am I going to ignore it? Think I know better. I never know better.
Yeah.
Nobody knows better than the universe, you know.
True. However, a lot of the things I do with the bullseye side is the universe gives you exactly what you ask for
Yes.
if you work for it. However, the universe also has a very weird sense of humor. You know, and I've done this with so many people. A friend of mine, I want to be worth 100 mil, 100 mil, 100 mil. And I'm like, that's not specific. It is. His sister gave him a license plate for his car one day that said 100 mil. And I'm like, the universe gave you. You asked for 100 mil. You didn't say how. You know, so it's one of these things about the entrepreneur. The other one is the 3 feet from gold. You know, so it's interesting when you talk about knowing when to quit. As entrepreneurs, we're like, when do we quit? How long is that belief? Is it a 5-year or a 10-year or a 20-year overnight success? Like, you know, we have all these conflicting messages as entrepreneurs that we're always fighting through, you know, which is fascinating. Let's go back to the kids stuff. From as long as you've been doing the books, have you seen any kind of transition in terms of the content or the messaging or the kinds of authors that are involved?
Oh, absolutely. You know, it's interesting that you asked that question, Stephen, because I've really been giving it a lot of thought. I have been most curious, if life imitates art or art imitates life. Because what I'm seeing now, and a big shift and a big difference is, and I'm seeing it on the kids' programs on TV. I have 4 grandchildren and 1 great-granddaughter. We all started early, having kids young. So there's this shift to inclusiveness, and that's the LGBTQ plus. And you see it on shows. It's in their books. It's in their phones. It's in anime. It's in the Japanese stuff. It's kind of like coming at them everywhere. And I'm like, is this life imitating art or art imitating life? And I don't know what the answer is.
Yeah.
But I'm seeing that there's a big shift in the kinds of books that are out there and youth entertainment, not just children, but youth. You know, your middle grade and your teens. I don't really call them children anymore, right? That middle school and high school, you're seeing it. And what I also see, Stephen, in line with your question, is the book lovers that really love to read are the ones that are always going to be reading. And the other ones, they get brought in from another kind of phenomenon that's really picked up, and that's the graphic novel. You see a lot of the kids that were reluctant readers picking it up and loving it because of the graphic element of it. And like I've always said, and I'm not the only one, you hear it from educators and people that specialize in children's literature. They don't care what you read. You don't care if it's a comic strips. Read. Because the more you read, the better you get at it. It's like anything else. It's that's 10,000 hours, right? Once you get that 10,000 hours, are you reading all those books in a year? Yeah, it has an impact.
it's interesting. Again, because I've read so many, friends of mine might say, oh, what should I read? And it depends on where somebody is in their journey, but I'd put my 10 books I think you should read in order.
Okay.
And there's a certain way of stacking the order of the books that you read so your mind can build the skill sets. And Michael Gerber's in there. I just interviewed Michael the other day. You know, Don Miguel Ruiz, his is actually third in line, because if you, the book one, Think and Grow Rich, two is what to say when you talk to yourself, to learn how to reprogram your self-talk. And then the 4 agreements is don't take things personally is one of them.
Right.
You can't learn how to not take things personally if you don't know how to talk to yourself. So that the children ones has always been interesting to me, Pat. My friends ask me, oh, if you had kids, what would you have them read? And I've always thought about it, and I'd say my answer would be speed reading. And they would look at me and go, what do you mean? I tried as an adult to learn how to do speed reading. And I think if you learned as a kid how to comprehend, you know, reading faster and better, I think they would enjoy it more. I just, you know, I'm all about improving. So I think it's always interesting is how early can you impact kids? What can you do? And the graphic side is, I think, has really made a difference in there. So when you talk about life imitating art, what do you see for the next couple of years coming up where you might be able to spot trends? The inclusion one is one. Is sustainability becoming more in line? There's things that are in the ethos that you wonder how far down that permeates to the kids.
Sure, great question. And I would totally see all of this focus on climate change and the saving the earth having a big impact in children's literature as the next wave. I just interviewed Philippe Cousteau, which is Jacques
Sure.
Cousteau's grandson. He's amazing. Yeah. And he's delightful. You should have him on your podcast. He's amazing. He and his wife, Ashlyn, are both. I interviewed both of them as well. And they've written a teen guide for saving the oceans, waterways, and rivers.
Okay.
And they've written a children's book called Follow the Moon Home, which teaches the kids about how turtles are born in the sand and have to migrate with the moon and how important it is to talk. And they teach about the environment, how where these turtles hatch, you can't have lights on behind them because they follow the moon to get back to the water.
Yeah.
And so if the lights are on behind them, they're turning around and going the wrong way and they die.
Yeah.
I mean, so it's teaching, and this is a picture book. So you're talking about like a little 3 or 4-year-old or a 5-year-old looking at this book and starting to get the message that the Earth's survival is our job. It's our job.
Yeah.
So and I'm seeing that more and more in the books. I'm also seeing social justice.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Huge. Seeing that a lot. And I get invited, 3 times a week to Simon and Schuster's, like they're launching their new book series about this and that, and Penguin House, and all of the different big publishing houses. They send me constantly. I mean, I'm little like 3 times a week, and the National Library Association, they send me their, so I'm pretty much on what's happening in that world, and stay tuned to it because I have a personal interest and for my own growth.
Interesting. Yeah, there's so many topics, and that's where you try and figure out where kids are going. When do you think the next conference will be? Are you excited for it to come back in person? Is this something you're going to continue to bring on and expand?
Well, we keep telling people we are.
Yeah, we're in California. I just came back from out of the country and coming back to LA right now. Here we are, November 2020. This LA feels like a backwards country right now. It's just the lockdowns we have are just,
they're very tight, and but we are keeping control. So there's the good and the bad of everything, right? The yin and yang. But to answer your question, it's really not my decision, Stephen. I need a venue. Okay.
Yeah.
I have 150 10 by 10 tents with exhibitors. I have 6 stages. I have a main stage where we have dancing acts and singing acts and live animals, because my animal stage is sponsored by the San Diego Zoo. I've got the astronauts coming for the STEM stage, and it's a big event. I mean, you got 18,000 people at,
Sure.
that's a football game for literacy, right?
Yeah.
And so they have to give me permission, which they gain from the state, to allow that many people on campus
To
at
come
the
back in. Yeah.
same time. So they have 20,000 students, but they aren't all on campus at the same time and in one area.
Yeah.
So we're on the, we take a sizable
You're on the
footprint.
outskirts of it. It's not a one-day festival, is it?
It's a one-day
The
festival.
one-day festival, all the people coming through, the booths, the kids, everything. That's amazing. What have you seen, last question here, with the proliferance of celebrities and things like that? It's been interesting because the tools and technology now between social media and followings, there's the impact can go much greater if a celebrity or somebody with a following comes on with a book. The ability to market directly to a fan base is something that technology's changed and enabled. Have you seen more influencers and celebrities and people coming in that side, or is it just kind of first-time authors trying to make a difference?
And are you asking that come to my event?
Yeah, I'm just saying within your event and within the sphere in general, are you starting to see more, celebrities and influencers, people that have an audience and a following, a lot of times have a voice? Are you seeing some that want to have that voice to children?
Oh, absolutely. It's what I do right now is what I start sending out notifications to the big publishing houses, all of them,
Yeah.
saying, who do you have on tap for 2022? Who's in the book world? You say who's dropping a book,
Right.
so that's the lingo for those that aren't
Yeah,
familiar.
books and music.
So I start saying, have you got a celebrity on tap to drop in the fall, or late summer,
Yeah.
early fall? And I start that pitching now. And I also pitch the connections that I have with literary agents and and PR firms that I already have relationships with. For instance, Kobe Bryant came to me from a literary agent out of I think she's in Pennsylvania. And we just started a relationship, and she's always brings me every year great people. But that relationship took building.
Yeah, sure.
You have to build the relationship, and that's really what this business is. I think all businesses is
Yeah.
building on solid relationships that they know you know them, and they'll take your call or they'll answer your email. And so at our festival, we depend on it, Stephen, to have a headliner. Okay. And sometimes we have more than one. And
Right.
they can be either a very famous New York Times bestselling author or a celebrity. And then the others are New York Times bestselling authors come to our event. And then we also have the self-published. And the self-published authors will usually be in what we call a big booth that has 5 tables in it. And we call it the author's corner. They're not big enough to stand on their own, so we put them in a group.
Yeah.
And that way, and we put them in the sections of the festival that apply to their book. So if they've written a book on animals, they'd be in the animal section. If they've written a book on for teens, it'd be in the teen section.
Sure.
So that people, especially when you have that many people, you want to make it easy to find the kind of author you're looking for. And we designate it by different colors of balloons, and it's in the guide. Look for the pink section for that kind of author. Look for this section, so that you want them to easily get to you, or the authors aren't going to continue to pay and be there, because they pay us to be there.
Yeah. Well, it's a festival, as they should. You bring in a bunch of people.
That's right. And the relationships, because I got PBS is one of my long-standing relationships. They run an ad on TV for us in their blogs and in their newsletters. I've had Target, I've had Southwest Airlines, and those relationships, they promote it too.
Yeah.
This year I have Wawanesa Insurance, and these people give us, hard cash to put on the event.
Amazing success you've had. I'm looking forward to the next one. If it's in person, I want to be able to come down and participate or promote it or do whatever we can.
We'll get you to interview some of the top people then. That'd be fun.
I would do it. I'd interview, panel, moderator, stage, whatever we need. So
awesome.
Great time as
Stephen,
always.
Is there anything I can do for you?
Potentially, but we'll talk offline.
Okay, sounds good.
All right, Pat. Thanks so much. Thanks everybody for tuning in. Steve and me, the Bullseye Guy, coming back at you soon.